When I was 16, my parents took my younger sister on a weekend trip to visit some relatives, leaving me home alone for the very first time. I was ecstatic. Freedom, no curfew, no one telling me to turn down my music, just me and 2 glorious days of doing absolutely nothing. The first day was a dream. I binged on junk food, played video games until my eyes were blurry, and blasted my favorite bands through the house speakers. It was everything I had imagined. Night fell, and the house, which had felt like my personal kingdom all day, started to feel big and empty. The usual creaks and groans of an old house, things I never noticed when my family was around, suddenly sounded amplified. The wind rattling the window pane, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, every little noise made me jump. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself I was being ridiculous. I was a 16-year-old, not a little kid afraid of the dark. I put on a movie, a loud action flick, hoping the explosions and car chases would drown out the unsettling quiet. It was around midnight when I first heard it, a faint scratching sound. It was coming from the direction of the back door, the one in the kitchen that led out to the porch. At first, I dismissed it. Probably just a tree branch scraping against the siding in the wind. Yeah, that had to be it. I turned up the volume on the movie and tried to focus on the screen. But the sound came again, a little louder this time. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch, pause. It was rhythmic, deliberate. It didn't sound like a tree branch, it sounded like a claws. My heart started thumping against my ribs. We lived on the edge of town, with woods backing up to our property. Raccoons were common. It was probably just a raccoon, trying to get into the trash cans we kept on the back porch. I told myself this over and over, a desperate mantra to keep the panic at bay. I muted the TV, the scratching stopped. Silence. I held my breath, listening. Nothing. Maybe it had given up and left. I let out a slow, shaky breath, feeling a wave of relief. Then, I heard a thud, a solid, heavy thud against the back door. It wasn't a scratch this time. It was like something had thrown itself against the wood. My blood ran cold. Raccoons are clever, but they aren't that big or that strong. I crept out of the living room, my bare feet silent on the cold hardwood floor. The house was pitch black, except for the pale blue glow of the TV screen behind me. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist into menacing shapes. I peeked around the corner into the kitchen. The moonlight filtering through the window above the sink cast a silvery light over the room. I could see the back door clearly. It was still. I waited, my ears straining for any sound. A minute passed. Then another. Nothing. Maybe I was just overtired, my imagination running wild in the empty house. I was about to turn back to the living room when I heard it again. A low, guttural growl. It wasn't the yip of a coyote or the chatter of a raccoon. It was a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated through the floor. And it was right on the other side of the door. I froze, paralyzed with a fear so intense it was physical. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming at me to run, to hide, to call someone, but my body wouldn't obey. The scratching started again, but it was frantic now, scraping furiously at the bottom of the door. Splinters of wood were being clawed away. This was no raccoon. This was something that wanted in, badly, my phone. It was in the living room, on the coffee table. I had to get to it. I forced my legs to move, taking one slow, backward step at a time, my eyes locked on the kitchen door. The scratching and growling continued, getting louder and more aggressive. It sounded like the thing was in a frenzy. I finally made it back into the living room and snatched my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. Who do I call? 911. What would I say? There's an animal at my back door. They'd think I was a prank caller. My parents. They were hours away. What could they do? Just as I was about to dial my dad's number anyway, a new sound cut through the chaos. A metallic jiggle, the doorknob, it was turning. Back and forth, slowly at first, then with increasing force. I saw the brass knob twisting violently in the moonlight. My heart felt like it was going to explode. This wasn't an animal. Animals don't turn doorknobs. Pure terror finally broke my paralysis. I bolted. I didn't even think. I just ran. Up the stairs, taking them two at a time, my breath catching in my throat in ragged sobs. I slammed my bedroom door shut and locked it, my back pressed against the wood as if I could hold it closed with my own body weight. I fumbled for the heavy dresser against the wall and, with a surge of adrenaline, began pushing it in front of the door. It scraped horribly against the floor, but I didn't care. From downstairs, I heard a crash, the sound of splintering wood. It had broken through the kitchen door. I shoved the dresser with all my might until it was wedged firmly under the knob. Then, I scrambled into my closet, pulling the door shut behind me, plunging myself into darkness. I huddled among my clothes, trying to make myself as small as possible. I could hear it now, inside the house. Heavy, shuffling footsteps, but there was something else. A clicking sound with each step, like long nails or claws on the hard wood floor. Click, shuffle, click, shuffle. It was moving slowly, methodically, through the downstairs rooms. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle my own panicked breathing. Tears were streaming down my face. I could hear it sniffing, long, deep inhalations, as if it was searching for a scent. My scent, the footsteps started up the stairs. Click, shuffle, creak, one step at a time. It was coming up. My mind went blank with terror. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. Alone in my house, killed by, what was it? The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and stopped right outside my bedroom door. Silence, a deafening, terrifying silence that was somehow worse than the noise. I could feel its presence on the other side of the door, on the other side of the dresser. I waited for the knob to turn, for the door to be smashed in. My entire body was trembling. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. Then, I heard it sniff at the bottom of the door. A loud, wet, snuffling sound. It knew I was in there. A low growl rumbled, so close now it felt like it was in the room with me. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the end, but the attack never came. After a few more agonizing moments of sniffing and low growls, the footsteps began to retreat. Click, shuffle, creak, back down the stairs. I heard it move through the downstairs area for a little while longer. Then I heard the sound of the broken back door swinging on its hinges. And then, silence, a true, complete silence. I didn't move from that closet until the sun came up. When the first rays of morning light streamed through my bedroom window, I finally, cautiously, crept out. My room was as I had left it, with the dresser blocking the door. It took all my strength to move it back. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty. I tiptoed downstairs, my heart still pounding. The kitchen was a wreck. The back door was hanging off one hinge, the lower panel completely shattered. There were deep gouges and scratch marks all over the wood, and a few splinters were scattered across the floor. But the most disturbing thing was the footprints. On the dusty floor of the back porch and in the bit of mud just outside, there were tracks. They weren't human. They weren't from a dog or a raccoon or a bear. They were long and narrow, almost like a human foot, but with 3 long, claw-tipped toes. I had never seen anything like them. My parents came home later that day to find me a complete wreck. They called the police, who came and took a report. They said it was probably a bear, disoriented and aggressive, but the tracks didn't match. The story became a local legend for a little while, the mystery beast of Oak Creek. But I know what I heard. I know that thing turned the doorknob. I know it walked on 2 legs. It wasn't an animal. Not any animal that I know of. I never stayed home alone again after that. And to this day, whenever I hear an unexplained scratch or a floorboard creak in the middle of the night, I'm right back in that closet, 16 years old and terrified, listening to the non-human thing that was inside my house. It started subtly, like a faulty wire or a power surge. Every night, exactly at 3:03 a.m., my bedroom lamp would flicker and die. The first time, I just grumbled and reset the circuit breaker. The second time, I blamed the old wiring in this house. By the third night, a cold knot of dread began to form in my stomach. It wasn't just the lights anymore, it was the whisper, a faint, dry sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It came from the darkest corner of my room, the one by the old oak wardrobe. And it whispered my name, Anna, just once. So faint I almost convinced myself it was the wind, or my own mind playing tricks on me in the dead of night. But I knew it was real. The next night, I was ready. I left my phone on my nightstand, flashlight app open. As the clock ticked over to 3:03, the lamp buzzed, flickered, and plunged the room into darkness. I snatched my phone, thumb hovering over the button. Then it came, Anna, a little louder this time. A little closer. It wasn't coming from the corner anymore. It sounded like it was halfway across the room. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stabbed at the flashlight button, flooding the room with stark, artificial light. Nothing, just my furniture, my clothes draped over a chair, everything exactly as it should be. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the whisper. I tried everything. I left all the lights in the house on. They all went out at 3:03 a.m. I slept on the couch in the living room. The whisper found me there. Anna, it was by the doorway, a dry, insistent hiss that made the hairs on my arm stand up. I bought a brand new, battery-powered lantern and placed it by my bed. At 3:03 a.m., the batteries died instantly. The room went dark. Anna, it was right next to my bed now. I could almost feel a cold breath against my cheek. I screamed, scrambling for the light switch, knowing it was useless. The silence returned, thick and suffocating. I started to unravel. Sleep became a thing of the past. I spent my nights huddled in a corner, clutching a crucifix, my eyes burning from exhaustion. During the day, I was a ghost, stumbling through my life in a fog of terror. Friends told me I looked terrible. They said it was stress, that I needed to see someone. How could I explain that a thing in the dark was whispering my name, getting closer every single night? They'd think I was insane. Maybe I was. Last night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat on my bed, staring into the corner where it all began. The clock on my phone glowed, counting down the seconds to 3:03. When the darkness fell, it was absolute. I held my breath, waiting. The silence stretched. 1 second, 2, 10, a minute passed, nothing. A sliver of hope, fragile and terrifying, bloomed in my chest. Was it over? Was it finally gone? Then I felt it. A weight settling on the end of my bed. The mattress dipped, slowly, deliberately. A dry, rasping sound filled the air. Not a whisper anymore, but a low, guttural growl, vibrating through the bed frame and up my spine. It was right here, with me. The sound wasn't just my name this time. It was a full sentence, a horrible, drawn-out exhalation of words that seemed to scrape the air raw. It said, Anna, I'm here. I couldn't scream. My throat was frozen solid. I could feel it moving, a slow, dragging sound on the sheets, inching its way up the bed towards me. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for a light that would never come. I could smell it now, the scent of damp earth and something old, something rotted. It was so close I could feel the absence of warmth where it was. A cold spot in the darkness, a void that was crawling its way towards me. The dragging stopped. I knew, with a certainty that was colder than any fear I had ever known, that it was right beside me. That if I opened my eyes, I would see it. That if I reached out my hand, I would touch it. A long, agonizing silence descended, and then, a sound that shattered my sanity. A soft, wet chuckle, right next to my ear. My name is Anna. It's 3:02 a.m. I'm recording this because I don't think I'll make it through tonight. The thing in the dark isn't in the corner anymore. It isn't by my bed. It's been here all day. I can feel it watching me. I can hear its faint, raspy breathing just over my shoulder, even with all the lights on. It doesn't wait for the dark anymore. It just waits. The clock is ticking. I don't know what happens when it gets to 3:03. I don't want to know. If you're listening to this don't turn off the lights. Whatever you do, don't ever let it get dark. It's whispering my name right now, but this time, it sounds like it's coming from inside my own head. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, or if you're now terrified of the dark, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more chills. Stay safe, and see you next time. I've always been a bit of a homebody. The idea of a quiet night in, just me, a good movie, and a giant bowl of popcorn. That's my version of a perfect Friday. So when my parents announced they were going away for the weekend to visit my aunt, leaving me with the house all to myself, I was ecstatic. Don't throw any wild parties, my dad joked as they pulled out of the driveway. I just laughed and waved, already dreaming of the uninterrupted bliss that awaited. Little did I know, my dream weekend was about to turn into a living nightmare. The first few hours were exactly as I'd imagined. I blasted my favorite music, danced around the living room, and ordered a ridiculously large pizza just for myself. As evening fell, I settled onto the couch, ready for a movie marathon. The house was old, one of those charming but creaky places where every gust of wind sounds like a footstep. I was used to its symphony of groans and sighs, so I didn't think much of it at first. The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes, and I just pulled my blanket tighter, feeling cozy and safe. It was during the second movie, a cheesy slasher flick, that I heard the first sound that didn't belong. A soft thud from upstairs. It wasn't the usual creak of the house settling. It was a distinct, deliberate sound, like something being set down on a wooden floor. I paused the movie, my heart suddenly beating a little faster. Silence. I told myself it was just my imagination, spurred on by the horror film. I pressed play, but the mood was broken. I couldn't focus on the movie anymore. Every shadow seemed to move. Every creak of the floorboards above sent a shiver down my spine. Then I heard it again. A scraping sound, like a chair being dragged across the floor in my parents' bedroom, directly above me. My blood ran cold. There was no way that was the wind. I muted the TV, and the silence of the house was deafening. My mind raced. Did I forget to lock a window? Did a raccoon get in? I tried to rationalize it, to find any explanation that didn't involve an intruder. But deep down, a primal fear was taking hold. I wasn't alone. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone from the coffee table. My first instinct was to call the police, but what would I say? I think I heard a chair move. They'd think I was a prank caller. I needed proof. I needed to be sure. Quietly, I slipped off the couch, my bare feet making no sound on the rug. The stairs leading to the second floor were at the end of the hallway, shrouded in darkness. Taking a deep breath, I decided to investigate. It was my house, after all. I needed to know what was going on, the weapon of choice. A heavy, metal flashlight from the kitchen drawer. It felt pathetic in my hand, but it was better than nothing. I crept down the hall, my heart pounding in my ears like a drum. Each step I took was agonizingly slow. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I peered up into the oppressive darkness of the landing. Nothing, just an eerie stillness. I took the first step, and the old wood groaned under my weight. I froze, listening. Silence. I continued my ascent, one step at a time, flashlight beam cutting a nervous path in front of me. The air grew colder as I climbed. When I reached the top, the hallway stretched before me. My parents' bedroom door was at the far end, and it was slightly ajar. I distinctly remember my mom closing it before they left. She was a stickler for things like that. My breath hitched. The scraping sound had come from in there. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I tiptoed towards the door. The beam of my flashlight shook as I pointed it at the gap. I couldn't see anything but a slice of the darkened room. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, paralyzed by fear. My mind was screaming at me to run, to get out of the house, to call for help. But another part of me, the part that couldn't believe this was really happening, needed to see. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled stupidity, I pushed the door. It swung open with a slow, agonizing creak, revealing the entire room. My flashlight beam swept across the space: the neatly made bed, my mom's vanity, the closet. Everything looked normal. For a second, a wave of relief washed over me. I was just being paranoid. It was all in my head. And then my light landed on the antique rocking chair in the corner of the room. The one my grandmother had passed down. It was moving, not rocking wildly, but gently, rhythmically, back and forth, as if someone had just gotten up from it. The scraping sound I'd heard. It was the chair legs on the hardwood floor. My relief vanished, replaced by a pure, unadulterated terror that seized every muscle in my body. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The sound was trapped in my throat. The room was empty, but that chair was moving on its own. It was impossible, and yet it was happening right in front of me. That's when I saw it. On the floor, next to the still rocking chair, was a single, muddy footprint. It was large, much larger than my dad's, and it was fresh. The mud was still wet. Someone had been sitting in that chair, in the dark, just moments ago, listening, waiting. They had been in the house the entire time. Before my parents left, they were watching me. That single thought broke my paralysis. I didn't bother with the stairs. I half ran, half fell down them, scrambling on all fours at one point. I fumbled with the lock on the front door, my fingers clumsy with panic. The second it clicked open, I burst out into the cold night air. Not even stopping to close the door behind me, I ran. I ran to my neighbor's house, pounding on their door until their porch light flickered on and Mr. Henderson opened it, his face a mixture of confusion and concern. I could barely get the words out, babbling about a man and a chair and a footprint. He took one look at my terrified face and immediately called 911. The police arrived within minutes. They cleared the house, room by room, their own flashlights cutting through the darkness I had just fled. When they came back out, they told me the house was empty. There was no one inside. But then one of the officers came over to me, his expression grim. "We found this," he said, holding up a clear evidence bag. Inside was a small, hand-carved wooden bird. I'd never seen it before in my life. "It was on the floor of your parents' bedroom," he explained. Right next to that rocking chair, they also confirmed the muddy footprint. The back door, leading from the kitchen, had been unlocked. Not forced, just unlocked. I never stayed in that house alone again. My parents sold it 6 months later. We never found out who was in the house that night, or why. Were they a homeless person seeking shelter? A burglar who got more than they bargained for? Or something else? The not knowing is what haunts me the most. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I can still picture it, that empty rocking chair, moving on its own in the dark. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to my core, that I wasn't just home alone. Someone was already inside, waiting. Thanks for watching. If you have a true story you'd like to share, let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more animated horror stories. Stay safe out there.